Good morning, welcome. We'll be getting started at 10 a.m., so feel free to make yourself comfortable. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. We'll be getting started in about 1 minute at the top of the hour. Thanks for joining us this morning. Good morning, everyone. We are just about at that time to get started. Thank you for joining us this morning for our Learn Libby with the Experts webinar. This is an open session. You are welcome to come and go as you need. There is a leave button in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, but I have a few notes we'll go through to just kind of cover everything so you can keep that in mind. And I'm going to get us started. So thank you for joining us. People will still be able to continue filtering through. I'm just gonna work our way through some housekeeping. So we're going to get started with our Learn Libby with the Experts webinar in our Getting Started with Libby demo. My name is Joe, and I'm here with my teammate Marissa, and we are both digital book specialists from OverDrive. Now this morning we have 2 dedicated demo presentations and some question and answer time and some quiz time built in. So just come along with us, have a great time, and ask us your questions, and hopefully you enjoy Libby by the end. Now, those housekeeping items I mentioned, we are recording our sessions this morning, and you will receive a copy of that recording in an email tomorrow morning from Zoom. It will come around this time, about the time that we wrap, and it will be a recording of our whole morning. Tomorrow is the earliest you can view it, but of course, you'll have access to that until it expires. So keep that in mind. Since we are recording, we recommend that you watch us as we go through these different demo pieces and wait to try the Libby app on your own until after we wrap up this getting started portion. So take notes, kind of jot down things you're interested in and ask us questions throughout. We just ask you wait to try it because we know everyone learns at a different pace. Speaking of questions, you can ask us questions throughout the entire webinar using the Q&A feature in your Zoom meeting controls. If one of us is talking or presenting, the other will be responding. So send those through and we'll get those responses to you. They appear in that Q&A box. So if you ask a question, leave it open to see that answer. We do have the chat and raise hand functions disabled, so that way all of the questions go into one central location so everyone can see the questions asked and the answers we provide. They will also be viewable in the recording, and with that in mind, you can ask questions anonymously. Last but not least, I'll be sending out some instructions here in a little bit to make sure that when Marissa and I connect our devices, you can see our full screen size. Every once in a while, Zoom cuts off part of the screen and we want to make sure you can see everything. So those instructions will be headed your way shortly. All right, with all of that out of the way, I'm going to take a second here to connect my iPad. Now, I am going to walk you through the app download and sign-in process before handing it off to Marissa, and she'll take us through the Libby app basics, everything you need to know to become a Libby user. Now, Marissa and I are both using iPads this morning. The Libby app is a free app available on Apple, Android, or you can use Libby in a browser on your computer by going to libbyapp.com. Now, whether you're using an iPad or an Android phone or a Samsung tablet, whichever option you pick, or even if you're in your internet browser at libbyapp.com, once we're in Libby, everything's going to look exactly the same across the board. The only difference you'll see is where we go to download the app on our Apple devices or our Android devices. So for my Apple users, we'll be going to our blue App Store icon here. If you're on an Android device, you'll be going to the Google Play Store. It's a multicolored play button or multicolored triangle. Basically, you just need to head to wherever your device lets you download apps from. So we need to search for Libby, so I'll tap on search, and then I'm going to type in Libby, and I'm just going to tap my search or enter button here. And when I do that, Libby is the first result that pops up. You may see an ad appear across the top of your device. Just ignore that and make sure you're seeing Libby by OverDrive. It's this maroon app icon with Libby reading her book. Now you'll notice on my screen it says open. Of course, I already have Libby downloaded on my device, but if you're on an Apple, it will say get. If you're on an Android, it will say install. So once again, Libby is completely free. Just tap get or install and sign in with your App Store credentials or follow whatever instructions your device has on its screen to let that app download. And once we're done with that, we'll leave the App Store and find that freshly downloaded Libby app on our device's screen. Now, when you open the Libby app for the first time that you download it, whether it's your first time on one device or if you're setting up Libby on multiple devices, Libby will have a few questions for you to help you find your library and sign in with your library card. So we're going to go through those questions now. Her first question is, do you have a library card? I'll say yes, I sure do. Now there's two things I want to point out here. If this is your first time setting up Libby, we'll be using the I'll search for a library button, but I'll get to that in a minute. When you want to set up Libby on another device, say you have a smartphone that you set it up on first and want to add it to a tablet or use Libby in a browser, you'll use this copy from my other device button, and that will pull all of your info in. So the setup steps we're going to do for the first time, you only have to do that one time. And whenever you download Libby on another device, you can use this button to make a quick game of it. But so let's head back to our first time example here. I'm going to tap on I'll search for a library. This is my favorite way because I can type in things that are nice and specific and precise. So the name of my library, the city I live in, or my zip code. I'm going to go with zip today. There we go. All right. So I can see right here, my library card is from East Longmeadow Public Library. There's my library's name and the address. Now I want to point out this name up top is the name of your library's digital collection. So basically your public library, the physical buildings are all part of one giant digital collection called CW Mars. So Marissa and I will refer to the digital collection a lot. That's just what that means. It's this CW Mars. So since I can see this is my library, I'm going to tap on that box. And I'm not done yet. I see the logo appearing up at the top and some peaks of books, but I still need to add my library card. So Libby's prompting me to do that right here. I just want to point out, if you don't have a library card yet, you can use your cell phone number to get an instant digital card. But I have a card number, so I'm going to tap on Enter Library Account Details. Now from here, I just type in my card number. I have a demo card, so it's going to be a fun looking number here. Whoops, that was just me. And once that card number is entered, we'll tap on next and we'll enter our PIN or our password. Now, this varies library to library. So if you don't know your password or your PIN, just reach out to your friendly neighborhood librarians and they'll help you with that. They can adjust it or correct it. And see, I typed in something wrong. Even the experts make mistakes. That's what I did. One too many zeros. Sorry about that. There we go. I'm going to tap on sign in again so you can see that. There we go, worked correctly. Now that I've entered it correctly, the screen refreshes and we have access to our library's complete collection of ebooks, audiobooks, and magazines. Now, this is where I would typically hand it off to Marissa, but we're in Massachusetts today, so I get to share an extra special step exclusive pretty much to Massachusetts. Now, in the state, you have a lending agreement with the other digital collections in the state. So there's a total of 8 digital libraries in Libby in the state of Massachusetts. And with your one library card from CW Mars, you can access those 7 other libraries. So I'm going to take you through the process of adding additional libraries. So there will be some spoilers for Marissa's part of the presentation, but I just want this to be here for when you review that recording. So first I'm going to tap on the Libby menu, and Marissa will talk more about that later. And I'm going to navigate to your libraries and then come down and tap on Add a Library. Now from here, we have that similar screen that we were just in when we were searching for our first library. This time, I am going to type in the name of my digital collection instead of my zip code. So I'm going to type in CW Mars. There we go. And when I do that, I can see all of the libraries that I have access to with this card. They all appear in this nice list here. And if I want to add each of these, I can go through. This is the only time it's cumbersome, this very first time, which is why I mentioned that nifty button that copies your info over on other devices. You will have to add all of these individually. So this step I'm doing, if you want all 7 or all 8, you'll have to do this a total of 7 more times. This is great because it gives you access to those other collections. So if a library has a book that you were interested in that your library doesn't have, you could pop over there and borrow it. Similar to how some libraries do that with physical books, you can do that in your state digitally. So I'm just going to tap on one of these. I'll go with Boston Public. And just like that first setup, we see Libby saying, okay, let's add a library card. Now, instead of enter, I'm going to say I'm visiting from another library, because we are. And we just have to find, there we go, CW Mars in that drop-down list. And just like before, you enter your library card number and that password or PIN, and then tap sign in, and it will do that same refresh. And then you'll be able to see all of your different library cards listed along the side in the Libby menu. So that's my sneaky little trick for those of you in Massachusetts. I'm going to hand it off to Marissa now. She's going to connect her device. She'll be using a demo library from OverDrive today, and will be taking us through the basics of Libby, everything you need to know to browse and borrow, place holds, adjust appearance settings, and set up your notifications. Looks like Marissa's connected, so I'm going to hand it off to her. Once again, thank you all so much for joining us.
All right, thank you, Joe. So I'm just going to quickly remind everyone that sometimes that zoom ratio will mess up how you can view my screen. So if you can't see the 5 icons that are down at the bottom of the screen, Joe just chatted out those instructions again for you. You can change that zoom ratio so that you can see everything I'm doing today. So the magnifying glass, the library card, that Libby menu, the stack of books, and the clock down at the bottom, you should be able to see that. We are going to start down in that navigation bar today. I'll talk about all of these icons at some point in the presentation, but I'm going to start to the left of the Libby menu. So you can see that Libby menu is right in the center of that navigation bar. If you go directly to the left, you'll see that library card. And we're going to start on the library card page today. This is where you're going to browse your library's digital collection of ebooks, audiobooks, and magazines. So you can think of your library card as if you were to grab your library card and then go to the physical library and walk around looking for a book. So you don't know exactly what you're looking for. You're just kind of browsing the collection. So at the very top of the page, that is where you're going to see some filters where you can begin browsing. This is one of my favorite ways to start looking for a book. I use these quite frequently, and that's because it's a nice, easy way to look at content by a specific criteria. So we could look at books that were just added, or available now, so there's not any wait lists in this category. You could also browse by subject. So if you were specifically looking for a mystery title or a historical fiction title, you could do that here as well. Now, as I scroll down the page, that's when you're going to start to see some catalog guides here. Catalog guides do vary from library to library, so yours aren't going to look exactly like mine do. But one that you have that I'm quite jealous of is magazines, a nice, easy way to find magazines to read. You can think of catalog guides as just another way that the library likes to organize content based on a specific criteria so that you can find books nice and quickly. Now, as we scroll farther down the page, that's when you're going to start to see curated collections that your library puts together for you. You can think of this like if you walked into the physical library during the summer, they might have some displays with beach read titles. In the winter, maybe some cozy mystery or some holiday recipe books. These are going to change all the time because the library always wants to show us something fresh and new. So that is how you can browse for titles. So you don't know exactly what you're looking for. You just want to see what's available at the library. Again, it's going to be that library card icon that you tap. If you're looking for something specific, so you know exactly what book you're looking for, that's when you're going to tap on the magnifying glass. So I'm going to give that magnifying glass a little tap here. You can see we can type into the search bar. So this can be an author or a title. It could also be a magazine name or a series name. I'm going to go ahead and look for the book Beach Read. I could go ahead and select any of these search suggestions, but what I like to do is come down to the very bottom in my devices keyboard and tap search. And that way it's capturing everything for the term beach read. And this is actually what I was looking for, this book right up here at the top. And then as we're in this search, there are a couple things I want to point out. The first is going to be how you can visually tell the difference between an ebook and an audiobook. So you have to choose which format you would like to borrow before you borrow it. And here's how you can tell. An audiobook is going to have a square jacket cover. Right underneath that square jacket cover, you're going to see a pair of headphones, so that little icon there, and then the duration of the audiobook, so how long you will be listening to that. An ebook, on the other hand, is a rectangular jacket cover. There aren't any headphones, there's nothing underneath that jacket cover, it's just that rectangular jacket cover there. So keep that in mind when you're searching for books so that you are borrowing the format that you prefer most. The second thing I want to point out in this search here is how you can tell the difference between books that are ready to borrow and books that you will have to join a wait list for. So this ebook version here, you can see right next to that jacket cover, it says borrow. That means it's available right now. We do not need to join a waiting list. The audiobook version, on the other hand, you can see says place hold. That means there's currently someone reading every copy that the library owns, so we'll have to go ahead and join that waiting list. It's really simple and easy to do. All you have to do is tap on place hold. That's going to bring us to the confirmation page here. Down at the bottom, you can see approximately how long it will take before it's our turn. And then we can tap on place hold again to confirm. So this is when Libby gives us a few different options for what to do next. I'm going to go ahead and say keep browsing. This is going to take us right back to the same search that we were making. So I'll tap on keep browsing. If I scroll up, you can see I'm still searching for beach read. And now that audiobook version is on my bookshelf. So now let's go ahead and borrow the ebook version. I could go ahead and tap on borrow right next to this jacket cover, But if you don't know what a book is about yet, all you have to do is tap on the jacket cover itself to view the details page. So you can find out what that book is about and then borrow it from this screen as well. So I'm going to go ahead and tap on borrow here underneath the jacket cover. And this brings us to the borrowing confirmation page here. Now I want to point out up at the top, you can see we're borrowing Beach Read for 14 days. 14 days is the default lending period at your library, but you can change this to 21. All you have to do is tap on 14 days there, and this little menu will pop up. Switch it over to 21, and that will now be your default lending period moving forward. You will have to do this for ebooks and then again for audiobooks if you listen to both formats. And then because you're in Massachusetts, you get all those library cards. We're so jealous. You'll have to do that for each format at each library. So you'll have to do it 16 times, which is a daunting task, but I promise it will be worth it. And titles do automatically return on their due date, so you don't have to worry about late fees. All right, let's go ahead and tap on borrow down here at the bottom. This is going to confirm that we want to borrow that book. And now we can see that Libby is downloading this title for offline use. Libby does this by default when you're on Wi-Fi. And as soon as you get a check mark in that circle there, that is when you no longer have to be on Wi-Fi or use cellular data. You could take this book up in a plane on airplane mode or out to the beach, and it will still work perfectly fine. Let's go ahead and tap on Open Book now. This is going to give us the option to read the book in the Libby app or send the book to a Kindle device. So if you have a Kindle device at home that you prefer to read on, there is not a dedicated Libby app that you can download on that device. So you'll still have to download Libby on your smartphone or tablet or use Libby in a web browser and then use this feature here to deliver it to your Kindle. It's a very simple process. Libby walks you right through it. All you have to do after you tap on Kindle is sign into your Amazon account and tap a button that says Get Library Book. Really, really simple. I'm going to go ahead though and show you a few of the key reading features here in the Libby app. So I'm going to tap on Libby, and that's going to open up that book. Now up in the top and the bottom of the screen, you can see I have some menus there. To drop those menus out of the way and make them reappear, all you have to do is tap in the center of the screen. This bottom menu does have the reading progress. So we're on page 1 of 524. Let's go ahead and drop those back out of the way by tapping on the center of the screen. And then we can page forward throughout the book by tapping or swiping on the right side of the screen. Now I'm gonna move quickly until I get to a big chunk of text here. There we go. One of my favorite things about Libby is that you can customize your reading appearance to meet your needs. So every book can be a large print book, or every book can have a dark background if you like reading at night. And I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that. So I'm going to tap in the center of the screen here. That's going to make those menus reappear. And then up in the top right-hand corner, you can see that A icon. That A stands for appearance. So we're going to tap on that to change our appearance. Now, within the appearance menu, there are a few different things that you can change. The first is your text scale. So you can use this slider here to increase or decrease the font size. Next, you have lighting. So we're currently in bright mode. That is Libby's default, but you can switch it to sepia or this dark mode here if you like to read at night or just like something a little bit easier on the eyes. And then lastly, we have book design. These are the different fonts that you can put Libby into. I always like to point out this open dyslexic font here. It might help some users with dyslexia to read. Now I'm going to change these all back to my default here for my next presentation. And that's because these are sticky settings. And what I mean by sticky settings is you're only going to have to make these customizations one time, and then Libby is going to automatically deliver your books to you with those customizations in place. So you're not going to have to come in here every single time you borrow a book and adjust it to meet your needs. Libby has got your back. I'm going to go ahead and tap on hide now. That's going to drop this menu out of the way. And then let's leave this ebook and then pop into an audiobook. There's a few things I want to talk about there. So I'm going to tap on back up in this left-hand corner. Just remember, if those menus aren't there, all you have to do is tap in the center of those screen, and that's what makes those reappear and disappear. And then that's when that back button will be there. So now we're over on our shelf. And I told you at the beginning of the presentation, we'll talk about all those icons at some point. So let's go ahead and go back to the navigation bar, and I'm going to reorient everyone here. So we're coming down to the bottom. First, I want to point out this now reading bar. This is Libby's way of giving you easy access to the very last book that you had open in the Libby app. So since we had just opened Beach Read, it is showing up there. I'm going to go ahead and dismiss this for now, just so that we can see that full navigation bar down at the bottom. So we started the presentation to the left of the Libby menu. That Libby menu, again, is in the very center of the navigation bar. We started out directly to the left on the library card, where we browsed the library's digital collection of ebooks, audiobooks, and magazines. Remember, that's where we didn't know specifically what we were looking for. We just wanted to see what the library had to offer. Then we went over and tapped on the magnifying glass. That is where we searched for something specific. So we could type in a title, author, or magazine or series name. We are now to the right of the Libby menu. So that Libby menu is in the center. Directly to the right is your bookshelf. Your bookshelf is this stack of books icon here. And this is going to be where all of your borrowed books, so your loans, and all of your holds are going to be. So here on this bookshelf up at the top, you can see filters. We could filter and just look at our loans or our holds. But on the main page, it's a little mixture of everything. So here is the title that I just borrowed with you earlier in the presentation. As I scroll down, you can see there are some audiobooks and magazines that I borrowed earlier this week. I'm going to go ahead and tap open in Libby here for this audiobook so we can look at what that looks like. So up at the top of the audiobook player, you'll see your reading progress. We're about 3% of the way through here. I'm about 23 minutes in with 14 hours left to go. Down at the bottom is where you're going to find your player. So all you have to do to start the narrator is tap on play. Now you can't hear her on your end, so you can hear me instead, but she is going here on my end. And one thing I like to point out here in the audiobooks is Libby is designed to play your audiobooks in the background of your phone. And what that means is you can tap on play and then minimize the app and open up another app and your audiobook will still be playing. Or you could, turn the screen off of your device and set it down while you do dishes and your audiobook will continue playing. And because Libby is designed to play in the background, when you're finished listening to your audiobook, for the time being, you're going to need to tap on pause. That is going to stop the narrator from talking, and then that's when you can close the app and move on with your day. If you don't tap on pause, Libby's going to keep on playing that narrator. You might have to go and find your place again. So I always like to let people know that is how you can stop that narrator. All right, I'm going to come back up to the top left-hand corner here and tap on back to go back to my shelf here. And then we're going to reorient again. So let's go down to the bottom of the navigation bar. Now you'll see my now reading bar is the Four Winds. So remember, it's the very last book that you had open in the Libby app to give you easy access. So since we opened that audiobook up, that now reading bar has changed. I'm going to go ahead and dismiss this again. Right next to our bookshelf where all of our loans and holds live is our activity timeline. That is what that clock symbol is. So this clock is going to show you all of your past history. So really associate that clock icon with your timeline. So all of your past history there. And I just like to tap in there so you can see what that looks like. We are going to finish the getting started demo today talking about the Libby menu. So that very center icon, this Libby menu right now is letting me know I have a notification. You can see that red bubble with the number 1 inside. That's Libby telling me I have a notification. So I'm going to tap on the Libby menu here. And that pops out of the right side of the screen. Up at the top is where that notification is. So I had a hold lapse. I did not borrow it in time. I'm going to go ahead and dismiss this notification. So I'm going to tap and hold on the box and then swipe it to the left. And you can see a new box has taken its place. And this is where I'm going to manage my notifications. But one thing I want to point out for you is the very first time you place a hold, Libby's going to prompt you to manage your notification. So even though I'm coming this way to find the notification menu, Libby's going to make it easy on you and prompt you as soon as you place a hold. So I'm going to tap on manage notification here to show you what that menu is going to look like. Notifications are Libby's way of telling you about important events. So up at the top of the menu here, that's where you'll find the 3 ways that you can be notified. So you can ignore a notification if that particular action does not matter to you. You could also set a menu badge. A menu badge is going to be an in-app notification, and that means you have to have the Libby app open to see it. And you actually just saw exactly what that looks like with me. So the first indication of that Libby menu was the bubble on Libby's head on that Libby menu with the number 1 inside, letting me know I had 1 notification. And then once I opened that Libby menu up, it appeared in that box up at the top of the screen and I swiped it out of the way. So that menu badge, again, is an in-app notification. If you are going to open Libby every single day, that is a good option for you. If you're not going to open Libby every day, I recommend going with the blue notification line. This is going to be a push notification, and it will appear on your device's screen regardless of what app you have open. So you could be looking at Libby, but you could also be browsing Facebook or reading the news or doing the dishes, your phone's asleep. You go and pick up your phone and it will appear on your device's home screen, just like a text message would. So a really good option if you're not going to open Libby every day, so you're not missing any of those important events. So those are the ways you can be notified. Right underneath that are all of the things you can be notified about. And the most important one is hold ready. And the reason it's important that you are notified when your hold is ready is because when it's your turn on a wait list, Libby puts that book in a 3-day limbo period, more specifically 72 hours. And in that limbo period, you are the only person who can take action on that title. The 3 actions you can take in that 3-day period are to borrow the hold, to cancel the hold, or to have the hold delivered later. Delivered later is a really nice feature if you get busy and you don't have time to read that book right now. What you can do is set a time period where Libby will keep you at the top of the wait list and people will skip over you in line until that time period ends. And then you'll be the next person in line to receive the book. Now, in that 3-day period where that book is in limbo, if you don't either borrow, cancel, or have the title delivered later, Libby's going to automatically deliver the title later to you one time as a courtesy. And then you'll have a second 3-day period to take action again. In that second 3-day limbo period, if you don't take action, that's when Libby's going to cancel your hold. So you'll have to go and find the book again and rejoin the wait list, which puts you at the bottom. So that's why I say it's really important to be notified that your hold is ready so that you can take action and don't miss out on those great books. All right, I'm going to come back to the top here and tap on back. We just have 2 more things to talk about. Joe gave us a sneak peek of this earlier, our libraries. So in Massachusetts, you are very lucky. We're coming from Ohio. We're so jealous that you have all of that reciprocal lending agreement there. So here is where you're going to be able to switch between those 8 libraries that you have access to. Really nice feature so that you can find shorter wait lists or books that some libraries don't own. You can also add additional library cards from the same library. So if you have, multiple people in your family who share a device and you don't want to fight over your loan limit, you can all add your library cards there as well. Last but not least, you have help and support here in this menu. If you come down to the bottom, you can tap on Get Some Help. This is where you're going to find common solutions, including that setup code that Joe talked about at the very beginning when you want to transfer all of your cards over to another device with just a single code instead of typing in your library card over and over again. This is where you can find that. Up at the top is where you can type in questions or keywords. So I like to keep this Getting Started with Libby presentation to the very basics. I just want to tell you what you absolutely need to know to function within the Libby app. So one thing I don't talk about is returning titles early. That's because they return automatically on their due date. So it's not a need to know feature, but I like to use this as a way where you can show, to show you a way, there we go, early in the morning, to find out more about the Libby app. So I'm just going to type in return here. Because it's a keyword, Libby is going to have to guess what I'm looking for. She's usually right. Returning books is the article that I'm looking for. I'm going to tap on returning books. And here we can see Libby's telling me you don't have to worry about returning books early because they return on their due date. But if you do want to return books early, then you can follow these steps here. Now, if you can't find what you're looking for there, all you have to do is tap on Ask Our Support Team. And this will connect you with OverDrive technical support specialists. They are Libby experts, so there are not very many questions that you could throw their way that they're not going to know the answer to. And they can also help you troubleshoot any deeper issues. So if you're having trouble downloading a book or anything with the app, then they can help you out via email. And that is everything you need to know from start to finish with the Getting Started with Libby session. I'm going to let Joe take back over on the screen here and move on to some next steps.
Awesome. Thanks, Marissa. All right, everyone, that wraps up the demo of our Getting Started with Libby section. We're going to final that up with a little test on you in just a minute here, but I wanted to provide some reminders here. You can ask Marissa and I questions at any time throughout the entire presentation, and you can even ask those questions anonymously. We will be responding to those in that Q&A feature here, so send those through and one of us will be responding. To wrap up the Getting Started portion, we will be doing a little mini quiz here to kind of test your knowledge, see what you learned. This is also anonymous, so no one will know who answered what, and we'll be showing you some fun little examples as well. Then at 10:45, we'll start our deep dive into the Libby app, where Marissa and I talk about some of our favorite tips and tricks. We recommend you stick around for this session if you're feeling confident. So use that quiz as a judge if you're kind of feeling at your max or you can't absorb any more info for the day, or if you need to hop off, don't worry, you are receiving that email tomorrow morning and you'll have 30 days to review that recording. So just kind of keep that in mind. No pressure on the deep dive. While it is a lot of great info, you can always start watching that as soon as tomorrow. If you do hop off before the deep dive, I'll have a final, like a last call there, a final reminder before we transition into it. But when you do, if you leave at any time, if you have to leave early for any reason, a survey will pop up in your browser, and we just ask that you fill that out for us so we can continue to grow and adapt this presentation. All right, let me hop into these questions now. They should appear in the center of your screen if you are on a computer. I'm going to launch the first one so you can see that. If you have multiple monitors, they may be appearing on another monitor display. And if you're on a mobile device, you may not see the polls at all. You might have to tap the polls button. So in the navigation bar, that's where we're going to start. What do you tap to browse your library's collection? So when you want that feeling of walking around the library and looking at the different curated collections, you don't know exactly what you're looking for. What do you tap on? The magnifying glass, the library card, the Libby menu, the stack of books, or the clock. Once again, questions are completely anonymous. No one will get called out. I'm going to close this one in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, great work, everyone. We've got a pretty broad spread of answers there. This is kind of a trick question on our end because there are 2 ways to search for titles in Libby. But when you want to browse your library's collection, you take your library card and you go to the library. So we tap on that library card icon, and that brings us to our library's main digital collection page, where we can see the different guides and curated lists curated by our friendly neighborhood librarians to give us suggestions of what we might like to read. When you know something specific, like the title, author, or series name, that's when we recommend using that magnifying glass. Type in those, keywords and tap on search, and you'll get your result. Question number 2, we're sticking in the navigation bar. In the navigation bar, what do you tap to find your loans and holds? So what icon do you tap to get to your shelf? The magnifying glass, the library card, the Libby menu, the stack of books, or the clock. So these are your current books that you're borrowing or anything you currently have on hold. I'm going to close this in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Awesome, great job, everyone. We've got the majority rules on this one. If you want to navigate to your shelf to see your loans and holds, you'll tap on that stack of books icon. And from here, you could tap in and see just your loans or just your holds. Or if you scroll on this shelf page, Libby will have some different suggestions of books you've opened a few times but haven't finished yet, or your overall loans list. For question number 3, we're going to dive into an ebook. What are the 3 ways you can customize your ebook's appearance? So select all that apply, 3 correct answers. You can change the text scale or the size of the font, the lighting or the background color of the book design or the font the book is written in, or language, the language the book is written in. 3 correct answers here. And I'll be closing this one in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, y'all are doing fantastic. This is our second trick question. Not so much a trick, but there are 3 things you can adjust in an ebook to customize your experience. To do that, you tap on the center of the screen and tap the A icon to pull up your appearance menu. From here, you can change the text scale or the size of the font, so every book can be a large print book. Next, you can change the lighting or the background color of the title. So bright mode is the default, dark is nice and easy on the eyes. And last, you can change the book design or the font the book is written in. Here we're showing off our Open Dyslexic font, but we also have that custom button underneath it, so you can kind of build your own font if that's what you appreciate more. For those of you who answered language, that's where we tricked you. While your library does offer titles in a lot of other languages, that is not something you can change in a book that you have borrowed. You have to make sure you're picking the language you'd like from the start. And Marissa will talk a little bit more about setting some language preferences in our tips and tricks session. All right, for question number 4, this is a quick one. True or false, titles return automatically on their due date. It's one of my favorite questions because the answers fly in so quickly for the true or false. I'm going to close this in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, everyone got that 100% correct. Good work. So titles return automatically on their due date, so you never have to worry about fines or late fees. You can return a title early from your shelf by tapping on Manage Loan next to the title you'd like to return, and then tapping Return Early. You'll have to tap this confirmation return button because we like to make sure you're not accidentally returning a title. Nice and easy. All right, question number 5. There we go. When a hold becomes available, you can borrow the title, have the title delivered later, or cancel your hold. How long do you have to make one of these choices? So this is one of the last things Marissa talked about. How long do you have to borrow a title? 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, or 1 week? I'm going to close this one in 3, 2, 1. All right, so we've got a nice long, we got a nice selection there. I was looking, sorry, there's a bar chart on my end for the results. I was like, oh yeah, that's a good long line. We've got everyone answering majority correct. Threw myself off there. So the correct answer is 3 days, or more specifically, 72 hours. From your shelf, you can see clearly this title is ready to borrow. I can either tap borrow or deliver later. If I want to cancel that hold, however, I'll tap on Manage Hold, and then I can tap Cancel Hold. Now, 72 hours is kind of a magic number in the Libby app. So 3 days or 72 hours is when is how long you have to make an action on a borrowed material, but that's also when you will be able to renew a title as long as there's not a wait list for it. So 3 days before a title is due, you can always renew a book if there is not someone who has a hold on it. And you do that from your shelf, similar to what we just saw with returning titles early and this kind of cancel hold option, by tapping on Manage Loan next to the title. There will be a button that says Renew. Now, while we do have a few more questions, we are at time, and I want to make sure we roll over into our tips and tricks session. So there we go. I wanted to take this minute here to say thank you everyone for joining us this morning. That wraps up the getting started portion of the morning, and we're about to switch over into our deep dive session where we take a deeper look and a faster approach to some of our favorite tips and tricks within the Libby app. If you need to hop off here, you are more than welcome to do so, as you will be able to review this at your own pace and in your own convenience when you receive that recording from Zoom. So the earliest you can look at it is tomorrow, but you have 30 days to review the video. So if you are at your max or need to hop off, thank you for joining us. When you tap Leave in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, a survey will appear in your browser. If you can take a moment to fill that out, we'd greatly appreciate it. But for now, Marissa and I are gonna hop on over and get started with our tips and tricks session. So if you are just joining us, welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning for our Learn Libby from the Experts webinar. We're about to head into our deep dive session where Marissa and myself will be looking at our favorite tips and tricks within the library reading app, Libby. A few housekeeping items. Apologies to those sticking around from an earlier session for the hearing the same thing again. But if you're just joining us, we are recording our sessions today, and you will be able to review that recording as early as tomorrow when you receive an email from Zoom. So you'll get that email tomorrow morning. You can have as much time as you like. You're welcome to share that with family and friends. So just keep an eye out for that. You can ask Marissa and I questions at any time throughout the entire webinar by using the Q&A feature in your Zoom meeting controls. You can do that by tapping on that button, typing out your question, and leaving that box open so you can see the response we provide. We do have the chat and raise hand features disabled, so that way you don't miss out on any of the questions we ask or the answers we provide. And these questions and answers will be included in that recording that you're receiving tomorrow. Last but not least, sometimes when we connect our iPads, Zoom cuts off part of our screen that we're sharing. So when Marissa connects her iPad here, I will be sending out instructions on how you can correct that. So let's take a look at the 4 tips and tricks we will be covering this morning. First, we'll look at our ways to navigate and read magazines. Then we'll talk about filtering and refining lists to find the titles you like faster. Then we will talk about tagging titles. And then we'll wrap up with making notes and highlights. So I'm going to let Marissa connect her iPad here and dive into these tips and tricks. Once again, we are using iPads this morning. The Libby app is available on Apple, Android, or in a browser at libbyapp.com, all for free. And it looks like Marissa's connected, so I'm going to let her run on away with it. Thank you again, everyone.
Thanks, Joe. Sorry about that. I was answering a great question there. Took me a second to get connected. We're going to go ahead and just dive right into our tips and tricks. We have 4 great tips and tricks for you. We're going to start with reading magazines. And so I'm on my shelf right now. Remember, your shelf is going to be where all of your current loans and holds will be. I already have a magazine downloaded for our session today. So I'm going to scroll down and find that magazine and tap open in Libby. Now, one thing you're going to hear me say a lot in this magazine is you're going to find what works best for you. And that's because Libby has 4 different options for how you can navigate throughout a magazine, and then 2 different options for how to read an article. And Joe and I, we have seen it all. We've seen people prefer every single option there. So I'm going to show you every single way, and then you will figure out what option works best for you. So when you open up a magazine, you'll have some menus up at the top and the bottom of the screen. This bottom menu has 2 of the 4 ways that you can navigate throughout. So the first are these little icons down at the bottom, those thumbnails. This is a great option for you if you have perfect vision. So I don't use this option because they're a little small for me to see, but I've seen people like this option here. So you could navigate to different pages by tapping any of these thumbnails. The second option that you have for navigating throughout the magazine is within this bar here. You'll probably remember that this bar also appeared in both ebooks and audiobooks as well. And this bar is broken up into 3 sections. If you tap on the middle section, it will usually say the chapter title or the article title. If you tap on that, Libby is going to pop up the table of contents. So this is Libby's table of contents in the Libby app here. Oh, I double tapped it with my wrist there. And this will allow you to choose different articles within this table of contents and jump right to them if you'd like. So that is the second way you can navigate throughout this magazine. I'm going to go ahead and tap on hide. And then I'm going to drop those menus out of the way by tapping in the center of the screen. The third way you can navigate throughout a magazine is by tapping or swiping on the right side. So this is my mom's favorite way. She likes to read every single page of a magazine. She doesn't care if it's an ad. She wants to, from start to finish, read that magazine. So if that's your preferred way, then tapping or swiping on the right side of the screen throughout the entire title is your go-to. Now, I like specific articles. I borrow a magazine, I read a couple articles, and then I return it. And so what I like to do is navigate to the masthead. You can see that here. The masthead is what the magazine calls as their table of contents here. And all of these articles are links within that masthead. So we can go ahead and tap any of these links here to navigate to that specific article. So those are the 4 ways that you can navigate throughout the magazine experience. Again, you're going to find what works best for you, but those are the options you have available. Now we're going to talk about the 2 ways that you can read an article. So the first I'm going to show you is going to require me to tap in the center of the screen to bring those menus back up. And then up at the top in the right-hand corner, you can see the Zoom button. If you tap on Zoom, this is going to allow you to pinch your fingers in and out on the screen to zoom in and out of the article. So you can see I'm pinching out so that it gets bigger, and then pinching in and it gets smaller. So that is one of the ways that you can read the article if you'd like. I prefer a different way, and I'm going to show you that. I'm going to tap on the center of the screen to make those menus drop out of the way. And you'll see this nifty button down at the bottom that says read the article. And if you tap on read the article, this is going to bring up a menu where first and foremost, your ebook appearance settings that you set in your ebook experience is going to carry on over into your magazine experience. And second, this menu is going to allow you to read this article by just swiping up on the screen, and everything is in uniform, is nice and uniform, and you're not having to zoom in and out. So that is the second option you have for reading a magazine article. I'm going to drop this menu out of the way, just tapping above that menu. And then let's go ahead and leave this magazine. That wraps it all up. Those are our 4 ways to navigate and 2 ways to read the articles. So I'm just going to go ahead and tap on back up in that left-hand corner. And that's going to take us back to the shelf. Now, for tip number 2, we're actually going to head on over to the library's digital collection. So let's go ahead down in the navigation bar. We're going to tap on the library card. Remember, this is where we browse for titles. And tip number 2 is all about filtering and refining lists so that you can find the books that you like faster. And so for this tip, I'm first going to show you how to set an app-wide preference. So on our library card here, I'm going to just scroll down a little bit right below our catalog guides. Remember, catalog guides are going to differ from library to library, so yours won't look exactly the same as mine. You have that nifty magazine catalog guide to find magazines nice and easy. But one button that everyone's going to have, regardless of what library they're visiting, is preferences. So I'm going to tap on preferences here. And this is going to allow us to set app-wide preferences. So you can see there's a bunch of different categories that we can choose from. One preference I always set is language. So I'm going to tap on any next to language. Much to my French teacher's dismay, I can only read books in English well enough that that's the only language I ever want to see in my browsing and searching in Libby. So I'm going to go ahead and tap on English. And what this is going to do is this is going to save to my Libby app and apply to every list that I look at. So moving forward now, I'm only going to see titles that are in English. I won't see any titles in any other language. And that will be even if I shut down my tablet or phone and then come back a week from now or a month from now, it's all going to continue to filter out any of those other languages other than English. Just for some other examples, we do meet a lot of people who specifically like to listen to audiobooks. They're no longer interested in reading ebooks, or vice versa. They like ebooks and they aren't interested in audiobooks. In that case, you might set a format preference so that you're only seeing audiobooks or ebooks in your searches and browsing. Another good example is audience. So if you have a young one that you only want them to see juvenile content when they are on their tablet or phone, you can set a juvenile preference, and that's going to make sure that they're only seeing that age appropriate content. I'm going to go ahead and tap apply preference. That's going to make sure that that preference sticks. You can see it refreshes the page. And if I scroll down, we now have a 1 next to preferences. That's letting me know I have one filter that is filtering out my lists. Now I'm going to scroll back up to the top here, and let's go ahead and browse for a book. So for this tip, I like to give a prompt. Let's pretend that my mom and I are going to go on a road trip to Dollywood. And so we need an audiobook to listen to on our way because it's not legal to read and drive yet. Tesla hasn't gotten there quite yet. So right now we're going to stick to the audiobook format. I need that title to be available now because we're going on our fictional road trip tomorrow. And so I don't want to have to join a fictional waiting list. I also am going to add some subject filters as well. So my mom likes to listen to mystery and mystery historical fiction titles. Let's go ahead and search for one of those. And then I also want this title to be a new release. So one of the latest, hottest titles out there. So those are my 4 criteria. An audiobook that's available now. It needs to be a new release that is a mystery historical fiction title. So if you stayed from getting started, you might remember me saying, I love these filters up at the top. It's generally where I like to start my searches here. So I'm going to go ahead and tap on available now. That is one of our criteria. So I'm going to go ahead and start out my search with the available now filter. I want to point out up at the top, you can see I'm looking at available titles in English. Remember, we set that preference. So that preference is sticking and staying and continuing to filter out my lists. In this list, I have 38,000 books, 21,000 audiobooks, and 2,400 magazines. So we could be looking for a book all day long here. I'm going to go ahead and filter out the books and the magazines by tapping audiobooks here. And now we already have 2 of our criteria out of the way. We're looking at available audiobooks, and we just need to add our subjects and then sort our list. So I'm going to come down to refine. It's on the right side of the screen here. And I'm going to tap on that. You will notice that these are all the same categories that we had for preferences. And I want to point out the difference between a preference and refining. Preferences are sticky and will continue to filter your lists, even if you turn your tablet or phone off and come back later. Refining is temporary and for the search that you're making right at that moment. So you can apply filters in the refine menu and then come back a different day, and Libby's going to revert back to showing you everything. So that's the difference. Sticky and stay, temporary for the search we're making right now. So here in refine, let's go ahead and tap on subject. And I'm going to select mystery. That number has now dropped to 2,800 audiobooks. We started with 21,000 audiobooks, so we're already getting there, narrowing it down. I'm going to come back to refine. We're going to add a second subject. So I'm going to come back to subject and tap on historical fiction. My mom doesn't like just mysteries. She likes historical fiction mysteries. So I'm going to tap on historical fiction. And now that number has dropped to 205. I like to show this off so that you know you can find niche subjects. So you're not limited to a broad subject like mystery. You can continue adding subject filters to find niche subjects. I have gotten to about 5 subjects before Libby's like, you want something way too specific. There's not an option here for you. So you can add 3 or 4. All right, I'm going to come back to refine. We have one more criteria to meet. I want this to be a newer title, a new release. So in refine, I'm going to scroll down here and tap on sort by. And instead of sorting this list by popularity, I'm going to go ahead and sort by release date instead. That's going to show me those newest titles up at the top. And as we make our way down the list, those titles will get older. So we started out with 60,000 titles, over 60,000 titles, and now we're down to 205. A little more reasonable. I would have spent all day, and now I'll probably only spend a couple of hours. So that is tip number 2, how to filter and refine your lists so that you can find the books that you like faster. We're now going to head into tip number 3, tagging titles. And I'm actually going to stay in this search here while we talk about tagging titles. Tagging titles is an easy way to keep track and organize books that you want to read later in Libby or have read in the past. So tagging is one of the main differences between the OverDrive app and the Libby app. The OverDrive app gives you a wish list and a history, whereas in Libby, you can tag titles and you can make as many tags as you want and name them whatever you want. So it's really quite robust. All right, I'm going to scroll down here in this list. We're going to search for a book. And as we come across a book that we are interested in, you'll see the third option next to the jacket cover is tag. I'm going to tap on tag there. And you can see when you tap on tag, you can create a new tag or add the title to an existing tag you have. Now, regular tags are tags that don't have any special abilities. So I just created these tags to keep track of certain titles. You can see I created a wish list, or what I made as a to be read list. And then I also made a cooking list to keep track of some cookbooks that had some good recipes that I liked. So again, these tags are just for organization. They don't have any special abilities. Smart tags, on the other hand, do. So the first smart tag is your borrowed smart tag. Everyone's going to start out with this. You can delete it if you'd like. I'll show you how. But what this tag does is it automatically tags any books that you've borrowed in the Libby app so that you can keep track. And it's a little red receipt. So it's like if you went to the circulation desk at the physical library and they handed you a receipt with your books, that's what that little icon is. So a nice way to keep track of the books you've borrowed in the past. The magazine tag here that I have, this is a notify me tag. And the notify me tag is specific to magazines right now. What it does is the first time you borrow a magazine in the Libby app, Libby is going to prompt you to create this notify me tag. And what you will do is anytime you borrow magazines thereafter, you can add them to your notify me tag so that Libby will alert you of when new issues of those magazines become available. So you're not going to have to go and search for the magazine and see if a new issue has come in. You can set up this notify me tag to alert you. I named mine magazines, nice and simple. You can name yours whatever you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and instead of tagging this title with one of my existing tags, I'm going to show you how to create a new tag. So all you have to do is tap on new tag and then think of a name to name that tag. I'm going to name this one mystery. So I have to be in a particular mood to read mystery titles, but occasionally I'll come across one and I want to save it for later. So I like to create mystery tags and then I can tap on go or done. And you'll see that tag has now attached to that book and it shows up right in our search. I like to point out that it shows up in a search for this reason here. We're looking for that book for my mom and I to listen to on our road trip, right? And as I scroll through this list, I can see that I've added this to a to be read list. So actually, my couple of hours of searching would probably just be 30 seconds because I know I wanted to read this book in the past. I've expressed interest in it with this tag. I could go ahead and borrow it. On the other side of the coin, as we search through this list, I can see my borrow tag has appeared. Even if I borrowed this 5 years ago, I can see, oh, I've read that already. I'm just going to go ahead and skip it in the list instead of reading the first 50 pages or listening to the first 30 minutes before realizing that you've read it in the past. So that's why I like to show off that they show up right next to the jacket cover in your searches. So this is how you can create tags, but I'm going to show you now where those tags live in the Libby app and then how you can export them out of the app for printing and more. So I'm going to come down to the navigation bar and tap on the shelf. Remember, that's the stack of books there. On your shelf, if you remember, that's where your loans and holds will live. Right next to those filters, you'll start to see your tags. You can tap on more to see a full list of your tags. And let's go ahead and jump into my wish list here. So I'm going to tap on to be read, and we're going to look at that tagged list here. Now, here is a mini tip inside this larger tagging tip. Anytime you see this library card icon, sometimes it will be a calendar if that title is currently on a wait list. If you tap on that little library card there, this is going to allow you to borrow or place a hold on that title directly from this screen without having to go and view its title details page. But more importantly, down at the bottom, you will be able to see how many copies of each title each of your libraries own. And this is key for you as people who can all have 8 library cards attached to the Libby app. So if you are looking for a book and it has a long wait list, you can tap here and see if there's a shorter wait list at one of your libraries, or also if any of the libraries own a copy of that title and others don't. So really nice little mini tip there that I like to show off as well. I'm going to tap above that menu to drop it out of the way. And then up at the top of our tag list, you can see the actions button. I'm going to tap on actions here. This is where you can rename or delete a tag if you're not interested in it. You can also export your tag. So I'm going to tap on export. This is going to give you 3 different options for how to export your data. Just like magazines, you're going to find what option works best for you. I like table here. So I'm going to tap on table. In your data export page, you will have up in the top right-hand corner a share button. So this is a universal icon. All apps have the same looking share button. I'm going to tap on share. And here we can send this tag list out in a text message or email it to someone. We could also scroll down just a tiny bit to print it out. So if you want to print out your list to take to the physical library and try to find a physical copy of that book, that is an option for you as well. And that is tip number 3, tagging titles. I'm going to go ahead and move into tip number 4. I'm going to tap outside of this menu here and tap on done. And then tap on shelf to go back to my shelf. And I'm going to talk about how to make notes and highlights in your ebooks. So here's that ebook that we borrowed earlier in our getting started session. I'm going to go ahead and open it back up. And I'm going to drop those menus out of the way by tapping in the center of the screen. Now, when you come across a passage that you would like to reference later, what you can do is highlight it and additionally make a note. So I'm going to tap and hold my finger on the word for, but I'm going to move my mouse just a little bit to the left so you can see what happens when I do that. So I'm taking my finger, I'm putting it on the screen, and I'm keeping it on the screen. If you just do a quick tap, it's going to turn the page. So make sure as soon as your finger makes contact with the screen, you're keeping it there. You see it turns blue. And then drag your finger across the screen until the full passage that you want highlighted is highlighted in blue. That's when you can lift your finger up off the screen and the menu will appear at the bottom. So we can tap on highlight or choose a specific color if we want to stay organized. Once you choose that color, all you have to do is tap on that highlight to add a note to it. So here, let's go ahead and say, this is a note. I have written full paragraphs for my book clubs here. So you're not limited to just a sentence or two, but for the sake of demonstration, let's just say this is a note and then tap on save. Now I'm going to page forward, just tap on this right side of the screen. And now I'm going to show you how to find those notes and highlights after you've moved forward. So I'm going to tap on the center of the screen to make those menus appear. And then up in the top right-hand corner, you'll see the multiple bookmark icon. I'm going to tap on that icon there, and it's going to drop all of our notes down in this menu. So we can go ahead and tap on any of these individual highlights to drag back to that page. And then to find the note, all you have to do is tap on your highlight and it will drop down. Now, we do realize that sometimes you might have book club in a month from now, you get the book, you make all your notes and highlights, and then it returns to the library and there's a wait list. So you're not going to be able to borrow it again for book club. But don't worry, we have a way that you can access any notes and highlights that you've made in any of your books, even if they've returned back to the library. So I'm going to go ahead, tap on done here, and let's leave this book. Now, because my highlight is in the center of the screen, I'm actually going to tap above it or below it. That will bring those menus to come back up. And then we're going to tap on back. So when you want to find your notes and highlights for a book that has returned to the library, what you're going to do is look for the title details page. And you can find that page in a few different ways. You could tap on the magnifying glass and search for the book and tap on its jacket cover. You could also go to your activity timeline and try to find it in there. That might take you a while depending on how many books you read. The easiest way I find is using that borrowed smart tag. Remember, we talked about that in our tip number 3. This auto tags any books that you've borrowed in the past. I'm just going to go ahead and jump into that tag. And then this is the book that I was looking for. I know I've made notes and highlights in the guest list. You can see here, there's a calendar instead of a library card. That means it's currently on a wait list, so I cannot borrow this title. I'm going to go ahead and tap on its jacket cover to view its details page. On the details page, you'll have a reading journey for any books that you've borrowed in the past. So your reading journey starts as soon as you borrow a book, and then it captures any actions that you take while that book is in your possession. I'm going to go ahead and tap on reading journey here. Up at the top, you'll recognize that actions button. We used it to export our tag out for printing and more. If you tap on actions, you can do the same thing with your notes and highlights. So you could tap on export reading data and send this out in a message, email, or print it out. I'm going to tap on the outside of that menu there to drop it out of the way. You can also scroll down on this reading journey page. You'll see your timeline for this title, and any notes and highlights that you've made will appear. So I'm going to just tap on my highlight that I made at 5%, and you can see here is the full passage that I highlighted, and then the note that I made to accompany it. So some options there for how you can access those notes and highlights even after the title has returned to the library. And that wraps up our 4th and final tip of the day. I'm going to let Joe take back over in case he had any questions that you might have asked while I was gabbing along.
I mean, we do both love to talk. Thanks, Marissa, and thank you all so much for joining us this morning. That wraps up the tips and tricks demo, but we'd love to take some time now for any questions you might have. I know there's a lot of great questions that were asked throughout the day today, but if you have questions at any point, feel free to send those through. We have about 10 minutes left, a little more than 10 minutes, that Marissa and I will answer those questions and demo them live on her screen here. And I'm just gonna scroll through some of these. Let's see. Oh, great question. Lori asks, I see how to delete a tag, but how do you delete a book from a tag? Excellent question. So we're going to go back to our shelf here. And let's just open up. Do you want to open your mystery tag? Thank you. So there's only going to be one book in here, but that's okay. So all you need to do, it's actually really simple. You place your finger on the title and then slide to the left, and that trash can will appear. Just tap on that red trash can, and that title will be removed from the list. So if you want to kind of keep yourself organized that way, or if you decide, I'm not interested in this one anymore, there you go. All right, I'm looking through some.
One thing I like to show off too, actually. Let's go to the War Widow. I'm just going to search for the War Widow. If you have a tag currently attached to a book, you can add additional tags or even switch what that tag is. So maybe you added it to a to be read list when you first start using Libby, and then later down the line, you're like, oh, I actually want to make a list specifically for audiobooks and then specifically for ebooks. What you can do is tap on the current tag that it has, and then you'll be able to remove it just by tapping. So you can see as I tap to be read, you'll see a little check mark appear and disappear. So I could, take it off my to be read and switch it over to my cookbooks, or even create a new tag as well.
Great point. Great point. Wonderful.
One good question that Ian asked earlier was, do you have the option to switch between a Kindle and the Libby app? And that is not an option. So as soon as you choose the Kindle format, the title is then locked into the Kindle format. So you can't choose the Kindle format and start reading a book on your Kindle and then switch over to the Libby app. So that's not an option for you, but Libby syncs between devices. So if you put Libby on your phone and your tablet and use it in a web browser, anytime you start reading a book, say on your phone, and then switch over to your tablet, Libby will automatically sync your reading progress. And she always gives you a warning as well. So she'll say, I just performed a sync to 4 hours and 15 minutes, and you're good to go.
Yeah, I like to think of that process specifically like usually people who have a Kindle just want to read on that, whether it's one that does that paper imitation kind of look to look more like a book, or even if they have like a Kindle Fire and they're reading on more of a tablet format. Usually people who are choosing the Kindle option only want to read on that one device. If you want the kind of option to read across multiple, that's when you know you need to be picking Libby as your reading option. Cool. And then I just wanted to touch back on the great tip that Marissa shows off, because we're on this screen and it's a great example. You can use that library card button anywhere that they appear. I just wanted to reemphasize that, because especially since y'all have 8 library cards that you have access to. So we're in a search right now. That card with the plus sign is there. It will do the same thing from everywhere. So that kind of allows you to search across all of your libraries at once, just since we happen to be there. And we just said, okay, Libby is not compatible with Kindle Fire, correct. While we are always trying to get the Libby app into the Kindle Fire store, it is currently not available. So for right now, the option is to send titles to Kindle, using Libby on another device or in a browser. The OverDrive app is currently available for people who only have a Kindle tablet and want to be able to experience ebooks and audiobooks and magazines. But right now, we're still waiting for Libby to be approved. And Marissa, can you take us to the shelf since we had that question about it earlier, renewing titles? Just wanted to show that. I know we don't have any titles on here that are ready to be renewed, but if you want to renew a title, as I mentioned in kind of our quiz portion, it's also 72 hours. You can do that 72 hours before it's due. You would be looking for that renew loan button. You can see right now on Marissa's screen, it's grayed out and there is an hourglass next to it. If you tap on that, it should give you a message telling you it's too early to renew. You'll be able to renew it in 18 days. So just wanted to show that one off as well. But all right, thank you all so much today. It doesn't look like we have any more questions coming through. So I wanted to take a moment to wrap up with some final pieces here. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning for Learning Libby with the Experts. We appreciate you taking that time from your day. As that final reminder, I know I'm a broken record, but you will receive an email tomorrow morning from Zoom that includes a link to the recording of today's webinar. Tomorrow is the earliest you'll be able to access it when you get that email link, and you have 30 days to view and download that video before it expires. So you have 30 days that you're able to watch it. If you would like to keep it permanently and have no limits, there's a big old button that you can't miss that says download, and that way that will allow you to keep that video forever. So something to keep in mind there. When I end the meeting, a survey will pop up in your browser. If you have a minute and you can fill that out, Marissa and I would both greatly appreciate any feedback you've got for us. So once again, thank you all so much and happy reading.